I've been thinking about the trend I'm seeing on YouTube of people telling us we don't really need to worry about a small cup of coffee at Costa every day or at Greggs because it doesn't really matter for our financial future. One idea is that most people make too much money to be thinking about £4 a day, and the other argument is that £4 isn't going to make us rich in the future, so why try anyway?
So what's the millennial fascination with coffee? This is people ages 25 to 38.
They love their coffee very much.
When looking at the biggest restaurants according to their market cap, the top 5 features restaurants like Domino's, McDonald's, and Starbucks. And when I pair this fact to the fact that 2 out of 3 people in the UK could not sustain themselves for more than 3 months if they ended up without money, I find it hard to believe that the small purchases don't really add up. So unsurprisingly, I do not agree with this notion that the smaller purchases do not matter, but it might be for different reasons than you think. When I look at my own getting out of debt journey, if I hadn't started with the small purchases and changed my behavior within that, I would have never gotten to the bigger purchases and to paying off my debt. It is due to me changing those smaller purchases that I was able to change my behavior altogether. So when we argue about the fact that these smaller purchases don't matter, we're kind of ignoring the reason why many people get into debt, which is not the money, it's not the maths, it's behavior. Learning to handle money at the end of the day is not about mind-numbing frugality or about becoming a millionaire or about being able to survive on free Waitrose coffees. It's about learning to handle the tool that money is. Because at the end of the day, money is just a reflection of the number of hours we've put in, and we can put that to good use if we have the tools. Because ultimately, money is just a metaphor for time, right? When I was an undergraduate in university, I would sometimes go to the cafeteria and get a black coffee and a cheesy panini. The black coffee was probably chemical enough to sustain a petrol engine, and the cheese in the panini was probably more plastic than cheese, but after a mind-numbing lecture, the thought of a cheese high and this awful coffee really kept me going. Buying the two came out to £4, and when I think back, it's fair to say that on average I would do this about 3 times a week. So let's do the math. If I went to uni for about 40 weeks a year, I did it 3 times a week, and we get to £480 a year. Back then, for me, that meant going away for 10 days with my friends to France. And those friends were actually going on this holiday, but I missed out because I couldn't afford it, or so I thought. It was only until I ran these calculations that I realized I definitely could have gone on this holiday, but I didn't know. I didn't know that every day or 3 times a week purchase was me choosing not to go on that holiday and getting a coffee and a panini instead. So this was the start of me becoming more intentional with money, because apparently I was making choices that I didn't know I was making. Calculating these things allowed me to be more intentional with money. It was only until I started doing these calculations that it kind of became a game to see which small purchases that I didn't really need, what they were adding up to, and what things I could do with that money. Back then I didn't have an emergency fund, so taking that £480 would mean starting an emergency fund, or it would mean paying off almost 10% of the debt I had back then. I had about £5,000 in consumer debt that I felt like I wasn't really going to pay off anytime soon. If I hadn't started with these small purchases, that behavior of mindless spending would have never changed, and I would have never paid off the debt, started an emergency fund, and started investing. As humans, we just need to strive towards something. We need something that makes us go, I really want that, in order to say no to something that's right in front of you. Because after a day's hard work, being heat stricken on the tube, a 2-pound lemon drizzle cronut from M&S is always going to hit the spot. But if you know what you are choosing, perhaps you will leave it for what it is today. So ask yourself the question, what small routine purchase are you making and how much does that cost on a yearly basis? Is that worth your money at the moment? If yes, then keep going. If no, try to cut it out at least once or twice a week and build it up over time. That behavior will become a new way of doing things and you'll be more intentional with your money. Thank you for watching and I'll see you next week.